Hello, hello, all Hearthstone lovers and users. Welcome to another week of Turn2. Chobra here, as always, and with my co-host Gnimsh. And we have two special guests today, Neirea, who's been joining us since Deck Wars and his victory this week, and Darkwonyx, now joining in on the call to discuss pretty much everything Hearthstone, as we always do every week. So let's do some quick introductions, just in case our viewers are not as familiar with our guest today. So Neirea, if you want to kick it off, and then we'll go right on to Darkwonyx, and then we'll kick off our conversation.
So, I'm Neirea. I'm playing for Team Liquid since November, late November, and yeah, I won today. Yeah.
Yeah, you won. Neirea won Deck Wars today 4-1. So congratulations to him once again. And then Darkwonyx, just a quick intro to our viewers, please.
I'm Darkwonyx from Sweden, currently teamless, and I make crazy decks, and I like making crazy decks.
Big
I
decks.
love it. I love it. We'll start with that. Normally we talk about esports first, but we were just talking about this before we kicked off the show anyway, about kind of what you guys have been playing and how you ladder in general. And it came up that Darkwonyx, you were talking about your Warlock deck, and you were like, well, it kind of depends on what Kalento's playing, because whatever Kalento's playing, like 70% of my opponents are playing on that same day. So kind of how does that go? Is that true for both of you guys? Is it really like whatever Kalento or another streamer's playing, that's kind of what the meta for the day seems to be?
It's like, it's not always Galento, but it's usually like the top constructed player on Twitch. Usually whatever he plays, the meta adapts very quickly to what he plays, and usually play their deck lists, I've noticed. So if you say like Savage get a lot of viewers, and a lot of play we play Druid on the ladder. Kalento gets a lot of views, a lot of play we play Rogue, or just keep adapting to whatever like a top streamer is playing. So in order to stay ahead of the meta, you kind of need to know what the meta is for the day.
Right.
Yeah, like I have example in the last season. In the end, when Kalento reached top 1 with Mech Mage, I just like, okay, I'll play Rogue, and like no one played Rogue that stage of the season. Like, and Mech Mage is very easy to beat with it. I mean, not very easy, but it's like 80% win rate. And like beat, and got in the last day I got rank 6, but was dropped to 9, like in 30 minutes.
That's actually incredible what you're saying. Like both of you, what you're saying, because it's like normally people assume that, hey, I'm just going to play the game. So like I get into Hearthstone, I build my deck, and then I ladder. And a lot of people think that I will just do well with my deck, and then I will advance. But in a sense, like the pro players, they have to research like every day. Like the meta game changes every day. How crazy is that? Like in other card games, you have those local meta games. You have meta game after a big event. But Hearthstone is like every day you have the streams. Every day something is happening. Somebody gets like adds Hogger to Warrior, and then everybody plays Hogger in Warrior. Like somebody changes the deck a bit, removes Gadgetzan, and then everybody removes Gadgetzan. So it's like you miss. I feel like in Hearthstone you miss like maybe 5 days, and then you're totally like out of meta game. But if you want to like advance and be like top 10 in the region, you do have to research every day.
Yeah, well, I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think that's like good, bad, doesn't really matter? It's just like more work for pros. How does it go for you?
I guess it's easier for pros in a way, because we usually do more research on the ladder or tournaments or something. We usually prepare. So if we know that the meta is going to be something, we can usually try to counter the meta by trying to be a step ahead of what most people will play. And that's like how you usually climb on ladder nowadays.
So the person who loses the most is maybe the like most casual player who doesn't watch any streams and just like plays with their own deck, and then they jump in and they're like, what?
Yeah, I guess the casual player kind of beats the pros that are ahead of the meta, because if you say like a guy will make a deck list that beats what's on the ladder, we will try to make a deck list that beats that deck list, because we expect most people will play that deck. And then there's this casual guy that has no idea what's going on. He will just play some standard deck list, and he will just beat our special techs because he doesn't play those special cards. So it can be sometimes like that as well.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's just a chain that goes round and round in Hearthstone for sure. But yeah, I mean, ever since the beginning, that's been something that kind of amused me that the so-called meta changes so fast, right? Just day to day. Like you said, Nosh, 1 week you don't play it, and you're just out of the loop. You don't know what the big deck is, the new tech card is. And so, but that's why I think kind of the streaming scene has grown so much because people are so eager to keep up to date on who's playing what.
Yeah. Also, like I really enjoy the fact that if you want to counter, you do have to know how to play different decks. And
Yeah.
we had Neirea at tabletop. He said that Priest has a very high skill cap with regards to decision making and how you play the deck. And like being a pro player, you might be very good with like Hunter, let's say Druid and Warrior, but then you do realize that Priest is the best deck, and you just being like Legend, let's say top 20 Legend in the region, you just can't take Priest if you don't know how to play it. You have to like learn. You have to know how to play the list and make the decisions. So it's a lot of work to be on top and consistently keep the top 10 spot.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk a little bit more about just what goes on the ladder generally these days. And of course, quite recently, for Tempo Storm, Magic Gaming started putting out the tier lists, every week and kind of updating that as things go. And most recently, after the Undertaker nerf, we had that tier list come up again. But generally, not too much changes. In fact, personally, I'm wondering if tier lists are even necessary week to week because the flow kind of stays the same in terms of at least deck tiers, right? You just switch out a couple cards or two. But basically, after Undertaker nerf, kind of Hunter falls off, Mech Mage stays strong, and then now we're seeing more Rogue and Druid. What do you guys think about that? Just part of the cycle, no big deal, or you think it's kind of interesting how things are flowing in terms of the meta?
I see on ladder like mostly druids and rogues. It's like 70% of the ladder. But also, like lately, some classes like Warrior and Hunter also became popular too, and some mid-range hunters with like same with high mains, with even with Ragnaroses, and this kind of rogues.
Yeah.
Oh, this kind of hunters. And warriors are becoming popular because of rogues, so it's like cycle.
Yeah, just kind of whoever, it's like rock paper scissors, basically going back and around.
And
yeah, go ahead.
And mech mages are becoming less popular because all decks that are listed are pretty good against mech mage. And like
so people basically learn how to counter it, and also like include cards that are pretty good versus mech mage, and then mech mage gets trouble. Also, like I feel people get bored. Like if you play so many games with one deck, which is always the same, you always mulligan the same way. You do want to have some variations there. Like you want to try out other decks.
Absolutely. And that's why certain people, even if like the game times are longer and later or whatnot, that's why some people prefer control, because at least Neirea was talking about this on the tabletop too, where there are people who prefer to try to make that big play and turn the game around and always have those options. That way, even if you're playing the same deck, it doesn't feel the same every time. But I guess my question about the tier list also extends to how applicable is it for more so the common user, right? Because like you guys already mentioned, pros, you guys like do your own research anyway. You're watching streams, you're keeping tabs on deck lists and what's going around. But for casual users, generally in any game, once someone puts on the like tag word tier list, people start to worship it and kind of go by that as the rules. What do you think about that happening in Hearthstone? Like, do you think it's applicable? Do you think you'll maybe even go that far?
Darkwonyx?
I wouldn't really say that. Like tier lists sometimes can be good. Like okay, you have a tier list that is one class that is mainly good against most decks and most classes, but there will always be a deck that counters that one deck.
Right.
So like having a tier list that makes this deck most popular, sure. Is it the best deck? Not always the best deck, but it's the most popular because it beats a lot of things. But it can also easily get countered pretty easily. That's why most in like the high tier lists on the ladder won't affect in tournaments, for example. Let's say Su was a long time like on higher tier list in a lot of ladder seasons, but in tournaments, handlock was most preferable back then as well, because it could be easy to counter the Su with some deck list back then with warriors, for example. before like the whole implosion meta changed the suit deck lists. But like, and for Mech Mage, for example, was really popular back then in last season, at the end of season. But when people started putting in tech cards like Mind Control tech and simple stuff like that can change the whole meta so easily, from making a deck being tier 1 to just going a bit step down because another deck started to counter it. So it's pretty hard to like make a stable tier list, I'd say, unless like a card is really overpowered and needs to be nerfed.
And also, I want to mention that it's pretty subjective thing as this tier list, because like some players are comfortable in some matchups, and like they wouldn't tell that like Rogue is bad against I don't know, against Druids, for example. I would say it's bad, but some players just feel comfortable in playing these matchups.
Yeah, I think back in the day with basically Miracle Rogue and Handlock, it was always a debate. Like, oh well, like I feel that Miracle Rogue is better just because maybe you're more comfortable with Miracle Rogue, but Handlock players would say no, I think it's fine for Handlock too. So there's definitely a lot more to give and take. I think especially in Hearthstone because of exactly what Darkwonyx mentioned, that there will always be a counter, whereas certain other titles there may not always be a counter. One thing may just be generally stronger, and that's going to reign supreme for like another month or so.
But still. I feel like tier list is still needed because like for us just doing the research and having preference, we do understand the differences, and for the normal player who is not playing Hearthstone like 8-10 hours a day and doing their like watching streams for 4 more and just spending his life on the game, it's like, okay, so what's the flavor of the month or like flavor of the week this week? And he's like, oh, people play Mech Mage. I didn't know. Like I played 10 games and faced Rogue all the time, but this deck is actually interesting. So they can go there and they can see what's happening. They can also see the history. Like I always like have so many people asking me, hey, what's the best deck right now? What can I play? Yeah. Can you send me a list? So they do like search for this information, and I'm not sure how in depth the tier list is, but a lot of people, they don't understand why certain cards are in certain decks. Like let's say Neirea will be playing one oil only, not 2, and he will know why he's playing 1 oil and not 2, or like he will be playing 2 and he would understand why it's like 2 or not 1, and people will be like, okay, this list is good, like 1 oil, it's fine, like I just play it. I don't know why, but as somebody they put it together, right. Just take it and it's okay. So I think those things are needed. Like people do need to share, and because there is a demand for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, looking at Magic Gaming's tier list, I think it's I think she does a pretty good job with the game Hearthstone itself, because she actually lists a ton of decks, and I think that's the best way to do it instead of just listing like 3 per tier, because you do want to cover all the ground. And like you guys said, it's personal preference. You want to give the options out there. Basically, the purpose of this would be to kind of share the knowledge, like Gnimsh said. So the fact that there are a lot of decks can be overwhelming for some people, but I think it's actually the better way to do it. So generally, something to keep in mind if you don't get to play and watch like all day long every day as a casual user. But interesting things on there are, of course, we talked about some of the classes coming and going, but then Druid, whether it's tournament play or ladder, kind of always seems to be around at least like average or above. And I know earlier Neirea was saying, well, Druid has the hardest skill cap and the hardest skill combo to play with the 6 mana and 3 mana. But what is it really that makes Druid that strong? For instance, Hunter, right? Everyone kind of knows the strongest thing about that is the hero power, that you do the 2 direct damage. Warlock, again, it's the hero power because you get the draw. What is it about the Druid class that makes it so consistent across different meta cycles?
As I said, 6 mana plus 3 mana. That's the strongest cards.
That's combo.
Without combo, Druid will be bad class. I mean, if the combo would be like less powerful. Like Savage Roar should be nerfed, in my opinion. It's too like overpowered. For 3 mana, it's like compared to Bloodlust, it's like 5 mana and not buffing your hero.
It's so crazy.
For 3 damage. Yeah, and Savage Roar is like 2 less mana, buffs for 1 less damage, and buffs your hero. So it's like,
do you guys?
It should cost like 4 mana.
Savage Roar 4 mana, yeah. Like compared to Bloodlust, for example, right? It's like 3 mana plus 2 attack, and Bloodlust is 5 mana 3 attack. So maybe Savage Roar for 4 will be better. So that you need full mana as well. You can't like coin Savage Roar for 22.
Yeah, for 22.
But do you guys remember the times like 1 year ago? We were just learning about Druid. Like the first Druid builds by Strifecore, they didn't even have Force of Nature Savage Roar. We were like just playing taunts and we were happy about it. We had the Watcher Druid and that was it. And then at some point somebody said, okay, Force of Nature Savage Roar is not that bad, so maybe I should play it. And then it just became a staple. But
yeah, it's right when the whole like 15 health threshold came into play, right? Every class was starting to race each other to try to discover that burst for the 15 health, and the druids were like, "Oh, we've had this all the time, and we never used it." And it just came into play. Uh, but aside from that, obviously, part of that, I guess, maybe we should say, is obviously like the innervates and the wild growths doesn't really help the cause there for the combo to come into play a little bit earlier.
I think it's all about flexibility as well, because Druid, whatever the metagame is, Druid has all the tools. Like you do have silence in with Keeper of the Grove, and you can pick if you want to silence or deal damage. So you have good anti-aggro tools. So you have some AoEs with Swipe. Even though Swipe is not that great as an AoE card, it is an AoE card necessarily. And you do have draw with Ancient of Lore, and you do have a lot of taunts. And well, you also have choice with Druid of the Claw if you can if you want to charge or taunt. So basically, Druid is really flexible as a class, and having all those OP things like Innervate and Wild Growth and the combo, you can always build a Druid that will kind of fit into the metagame, whatever happens.
Yes,
I think,
but also...
There you go.
You go.
Okay. I think what actually makes Druid so powerful right now is the Shades of Naxxramas. Because just having a shade on the board, you don't need to be worried about like the 14 damage combo. You need to be worried about the 25 damage combo that will come eventually. So you need to kill it so instantly before you can do something. And you also need to worry about him maybe like doing the 22 combo damage, or just having 1 or 2 minutes on the board and the 22 damage combo will happen just without the innervate double Savage Roar. Like it's so much damage you need to worry about. And even in ramp druids nowadays, not all druids are running the combo. Like some druids run Kel'Thuzad and stuff since that, I noticed. But you always need to be worried about the combo because you don't know if they will do like 25 damage in one turn. So you have to play around so many stuffs when facing a druid. And that's just so like, it's just so hard playing around like all those burst potentials and with Innervate, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The fact that the combo can fit into any deck, like you can't count it out no matter what you've seen so far, does make it a little bit harder. Because other classes, right? Even in tournaments when you're casting, even as casters, you're like, well, we'll wait 3 turns, and then we'll get to see kind of what the deck's game plan is. But with druids, you can never really count out the combo, so that does add to it. So the only way to make druid not like #1 class is to find a way to fix that. Like you guys said, maybe raise the mana cost on Savage Roar or something like that.
It would be fine. People will still play combo druid, but maybe not in that like not 2 combos, but 1, something like more mid-range one, and it would be like that OP, like it is right now.
Yeah, right now that's definitely the auto include for druids.
And the problem also is like when druid play Doctor Boom, like with Innervate, you are worried already about combo because you want this boom bot hit minions, not your face.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, you're right. Like the Dr. Boom and Druid is just ridiculous. But what about like if Savage Roar would not buff the hero as well? Like to just limit the damage threshold, because Savage Roar is basically in most cases just what 8 damage. For free mana, it's +8.
I want to say
with Force of Nature with Dr. Boom, right?
I think part of that, just if I'm thinking in Blizzard's shoes, I think the reason that change would never happen is just concept wise, right? Because then first of all, it would just be like a lesser version of a bloodlust, and second, the whole concept of like druids shape shifting and whatnot, like buffing yourself and things like that. I think because of that concept, that card will always give the attack power to your hero too. So you'd have to figure out a different way of whether like you nerf the damage on it, or I don't know. I guess the most logical thing is, like Neirea said, raise the mana cost without making the card too complicated. But I do see why they kept that in there, because otherwise it's just like, oh, it's just like a lesser version of Bloodlust, and it feels less unique, and I think they want to avoid that.
I have a perfect nerf. Let's add a bit more randomness. So it's a Savage Roar, right? So it means
is it an ogre Savage Roar?
Roars. And so the roar is like giving +2 attack to all the minions. Let's do it because the roar is so ferocious that some of the minions have 50% chance to get scared. And then they are not getting +2 attack. They basically can't attack because they got scared by the roar. So you cast it, and then you have like every minion, there's like 50% roll that it gets +2 attack or gets scared and can attack.
You don't have enough RNG in the game?
just make every class the RNG class of the century.
Can't you make like a Savage or make all of your minions ogres and they have 50% chance to miss or something?
Because they're so like confused. Somebody's roaring behind us. Where do we attack?
Damage to whatever, like on the creep OP.
I'd play that class all day. Would be fun to play on ladder. But yeah, so I mean, we'll see if it ever changes. I mean, so far it's been a year and that card really hasn't seen many changes. So we'll see if it stays and people will just find a way to work around it in terms of especially tournament play. Because on ladder, druids definitely have come and gone here and there. Let's also talk about warlocks specifically, since especially we have Darkwonyx here, and if you've been following the Hearthstone scene and the tournament scene, you've seen some crazy decks from Darkwonyx in terms of warlocks. But well, first of all, what are you playing in terms of warlocks? Just pretty much what you came up with last, or are you still just making tweaks all the time and it's evolving nonstop?
It's kind of evolving nonstop because of the meta changes so drastically nowadays. There's like every single day there's a new Fear of the Month class you have to adapt to. In tournaments, I would say it's different because you don't have to adapt to one class, you have to adapt to many classes at the same time. But yeah, I keep adapting my Warlock deck every now and then. It doesn't look like it did last time I showed it on my Twitter or since I played on ESL. Like, it keeps evolving. Basically, like what's the meta is.
Well, so kind of what's the way, in your opinion, what's kind of the best way to go about Warlock right now? Because, we've talked about a handlock. We're not seeing too much of that either. Zoo definitely has died out quite a bit. And then most recently, thanks to the kind of demon control Warlock is starting to come here and there with some variations from various people. What's kind of the standard way, in your opinion, the most consistent, at least for ladder play?
Right now, the most consistent would be maybe not playing it at all, to be honest, for now, because like the Warlock deck list, even the old version and the newer version, the weakness was rogues and druids, most of it, because druids can just burst you for those 30 health if you have 3 minions or 2. You always have to keep board wiping. So like Twisting Never wouldn't really do it because you don't want the Twisting Never 2 minions on the board, because they only need 2-3 minions, and rogues, what are you gonna Twisting Never, like Violet Teacher 1/1s? It's not like the most fun play. And also with the rogues, they have such an insane tempo gain with saps. If you try to play some big guys, like I had Shredder in my deck, I killed Assad. Like, saps can be so devastating in those circumstances. And also, if you try to fill your board with small minions, like Implosion, the Healbot, Earth Rings, they can Blade Flurry the whole board down. So it's so hard to actually get tempo of the rogue. So rogues and druids was the harder matchups for the warlock deck, and it's kind of hard to counter it lately, because I've even tried to put in like oozes and a lot of shit in my warlock just to counter the rogue, but then I noticed the ooze won't do anything because they prep oil and blade flare instantly, and you just feel like, how the hell do I even counter this with an ooze? Like, you have to counter, you're gonna ooze a 1/2 weapon or something. So yeah, it's kind of hard to actually adapt the deck to beat some of the matchups, but like, it's still good against most other stuff. It's good against Paladin, it's good against Mech Mage, so you can still play it, I guess, just not today, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, with the changing meta game. But you did this deck did take you to the top spots of ladder in January, right? You changed it a bit. And then also, like, in the Battle of the Best, I feel ECOP was playing your version of the deck, and then you were playing it as well. So how did you come up from the first version you played in the Legendary series that was super aggro with Twisting Nether, Arcane Golems, to the version with Kel'Thuzad and Sneeds, like being more mid-rangey, clearing one?
I'd say the example was because of when I made my Warlock deck list, GVG was partly new. And a lot of players tried to make very greedy deck lists or very aggressive deck lists. So I made this deck to kind of punish both of them, because it punished the aggressive deck lists by having so many early removals and the Mistress of Pain to gain the healing early on, and even with the Demon Heart, because no one expects it. And if you have Demon Hearts and Mistress of Pain, they'll be suicidal after a while if you let it live. So it kind of counters the greedy deck list too. Like Priest was a lot of Priests because of you have the insane burst combo, and they don't have a lot of taunts. They have like Sludge Belchers most likely, and you can also clear the whole board with Twisting Never or something. So it kind of suited the meta game real nicely back then. But after I played it for a while, I noticed that there was more and more times that Warrior became popular in the meta. And Warrior kind of countered the deck list because you don't have the damage to burst through. And also a lot of Druids came back, and a lot of taunt givers. And they also knew I played the OTK combo, so they exactly knew how to play around my deck list. And that gave them a certain benefits. Even if it's like still okay against them, they knew exactly what was going on. So I just tried to have the old weird combinations with Mistress and Demon Heart and Implosion, but just try to make it a control deck instead, because they will play around your combo at the start. They will like, oh yes, Arc and Goal, and we have to keep high health, blah blah blah, and then I just pop Sneeds down, and they panic. They have no idea how to do against it, so they're like, oh yes, minions, okay, let's put some minions on the board, and I have like Kel'Thuzad, and I just trade and auto win, and then Euraxis comes, and they just like, what the hell is this? This is not the OTK deck. So it worked really nicely. It got me to like rank 4, I think, on the ladder, back when Undertaker were still good, because I had so many ways to kill Undertakers too. But after the Undertaker nerf, the whole meta just became like Rogue and Druid wise. So it changed from there.
I see. Well, yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, I'm excited to kind of follow how it keeps evolving and what you show up next with that deck, or with the class rather. Because it's been an interesting journey, especially since GVG, and how you've gone about your ways of the Warlock since then. But I mean, for me, I think that's kind of all that's super interesting for me on the meta, and especially on ladder, because again, not too much changes that much. I mean, things change a lot day to day, but in the grand scheme of things, we just see kind of the same cycle back and forth, rock paper scissors. So I'd like to move forward, unless you guys have anything else you want to touch upon or something you've noticed on the ladder, and we can jump right into kind of our esports topics for today here on Turn2.
I can just add that today I had the pleasure of trying the Mech Shaman for the first time, and I was playing it first.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like I didn't have any expectations towards this deck. I was just playing it on rank 4 on NA first, and then I transitioned and started grinding with it on EU. I went really fast from like rank 16 to rank 8, or I think. It's really a lot of fun. Like it's similar to Mech Mage, but it's still different. Like you do have the weapons, and you have like more trading potential with the fun shaman cards. And I found it very curious that you're not running the standard shaman cards like Earthshock or Hex and Lightning Storm. You do trade with minions mostly, and you have the burst. I definitely recommend playing it. It's a fun deck, and it works.
Yeah, plenty of people have definitely been picking up on that deck for sure since it came to popularity a couple of days ago. But we'll see. I mean, I'm happy to see that you kind of take out the staple cards. For any class, I like it when that happens. Whether it's Shaman, whether it's Hunter, when you take out the cards that you thought were necessary at all times, and then it changes the entire class and how people look at it. So we'll see if that evolves into anything for Shamans this time around. But moving on into esports stuff. Again, not too many big things happening recently, but I guess one of the bigger ones is, of course, the EU versus China tournament and the qualifiers feeding into that. Now, there's a couple things to talk about here. But first of all, we'll talk about the EU qualifiers because those have been going on. And as you can see, I mean, Ghost Gamers did an article here where they just blatantly say, well, the winners aren't who you'd expect, mainly not the biggest names that people are accustomed to on streams and other tournaments. But in general, I think the bigger deal here is that Europe still kind of looked upon as generally, one of the, I mean, Europe and NA overall, of course, especially since Firebat is a reigning world champion, we can't ever count NA out. But Europe in general, since the beginning, has always been kind of a region that was looked up to by, I think, many regions in Hearthstone. And then we have China, who's always eager to want to be the top in any esport, in anything really, right? China has to be number one in everything. And so we have them setting up this tournament. And last time it didn't go so well for China, and now we have some new names coming in for Europe. What do you guys think about that? Is it? I mean, I guess they went through a qualifier of a grand scale, so you can't really doubt them. But it's nice to see newer names still popping up, I think, in various qualifiers.
Who do we have exactly? Like, I know we have Stanislav.
I don't know the full list so far. How many have been selected so far?
It's like 4 people already or something.
Yeah, I think it's just 4. Because it's 8 and 8 from each region.
Yeah,
I know 2 so far. It's like it's Max, and then I don't remember the name, but I know who it was. I couldn't pronounce it, so I forget.
Stanislav Sivka is like the first guy who qualified, and I was really like positively surprised, let's say, because he is a former Magic player, and
right.
I met him at DreamHack Bucharest, like Bucharest Masters for Hearthstone last it was November, I think. And he didn't do that well in the tournament, but he is a guy who is in Hearthstone like for a long time. So he's not like a guy who just came from Magic transition and he's now playing Hearthstone. This guy was there playing for a long time in the Take TV. Like in League, the Gentleman's Cup, and he was playing at DreamHack Bucharest. We did hang out a bit, and he got really interested in Hearthstone. And this is his first success in Hearthstone specifically, because he has some great success like in Magic before, like he won a Pro Tour. Right. And he's not a random guy. Like it's so good. I mean, he's not that famous in Hearthstone, but still, like I'm happy that this guy will be representing Europe, going to China and playing versus Chinese players. And then we have Max from Method, who is also a guy. We had him playing versus Neirea today. A guy who is not that known, but again, he is a guy who is known, and his name was here and there. So I'm super happy for those 2 guys to be qualified. But then we don't know the other 2, right? Or do we?
I personally do not.
All right.
I'll put that
Maybe other
there.
Darkwonyx. Do you know who qualified?
I don't know the 2 latest, but I know the 2 first. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not positive on the 2 latest either. But bottom line is, again, it's not just going to be your usual names that you see at every tournament, etc. So it's just refreshing, right? And it's always a good thing to see new names pop up, because that just means the scene's going to get broader, I think, and deeper. So that's a fun part of it. But I think, okay, here is the part that I'm really just baffled about, is the call from China for this tournament. They are so eager to win this for China this time around that, of course, the head of the company running it offered a Ferrari to a Chinese player, whichever Chinese player can bring home the victory for China. I mean, that's commitment. I mean, you're offering a Ferrari to a player to bring it home. I mean, to represent, and this you can see this in anything for China, right? The national pride they have in any competition. It's a pretty big deal. What do you guys think about that?
I hope they have the same format as we do with 1,000 best of 3 open brackets, and when like they have the same like players getting to the finals. Because if we see like this happen against, we're gonna have like, I'm pretty certain we're gonna face like Tiddler, Lebo, Magic Wind, like they're the Chinese like top players according to the rankings. I'm pretty certain that's gonna happen. But I really hope we have the same standards here, that they also have like open qualifiers as we do.
Well, if they do, and one of them ends up winning it, I mean, it could really change their life, right? You're like a nobody in a rural place in China, and then suddenly you win a Ferrari for winning a tournament.
Yeah, that would be great
for your country.
By the way, I found the winners of 2 other cups.
Oh,
and
right on.
And entry fee from Switzerland, and Skylink from Portugal.
Okay, and we don't know those guys, right? Yet.
Yeah.
No, not really. Yeah.
I saw Skylink on ladder, and that's it.
Okay, so basically, the whole tournament, Europe versus China, like a lot of people are used to the invites, so that, and previous editions also, we had people who were invited kind of to those tournaments, seeded, but here it's like fully open qualifier. So for everybody watching, it's an amazing opportunity to just go in there and play and qualify. Like it might be 800 people or 1,000 people, but still you do play against what, like 11 people, because it's 11 rounds or something. You just need to go through all or like 16 rounds. So basically you win versus 16 people and you're in. Like, you're invited, you go to China, and they pay you to go to China and represent Europe. So it's a fantastic opportunity for actually everyone to be there. And also, like, even if you're not interested in flying to China and representing Europe, it's like most of the pro players actually play in those tournaments. So you can like, if you normally are not invited to those tournaments, you can go there and play versus like Darkwonyx or Neirea, if you guys have even playing, and just face them, eliminate them from the tournament, and say, hey, it was cool playing against you. Now I'm playing further, and you have to like spend a free evening somewhere else. So it's a cool feeling, definitely, and recommend playing there.
Yeah, I think for most of you, if you have the time and you just want to be more involved in Hearthstone, it never hurts to join open qualifiers, because you never know who you can play against, and you never know how the games are going to go. It can at least always be a fun experience to play in a tournament setting. That's why people really appreciate like local tournaments or amateur tournaments, because the casual user usually doesn't get to play in a tournament setting. So it will be a nice experience if you're interested.
And also, if you're afraid that there's so much people playing there, like in DreamHack winter qualifiers, it was same amount of players but double elimination bracket, and some players played like 15 games to get there if they fall to losers bracket. So like playing 8-9 games in a row, it's like not that hard. It's not like then 14 in a row.
Yeah, that's I don't know how you can do that. That's very impressive if you make it through that. But so that's what's going on.
I went through winners bracket, so it wasn't that long time.
Yeah, the losers bracket is the killer there. But that's what's going on with Europe versus China. Otherwise, I mean, we have the weekly tournaments, we have things like Deck Wars going on. But then another thing I think that caught, of course, my attention, and this started a little bit ago, but maybe passed by some other people's radar, is, of course, ESL's Master Builder series. And basically, the thing I want to point out here is, once again, we have kind of a new tournament setting and a format coming out from ESL yet again. Of course, they kind of changed the rules up for their Legendary series from the standard King of the Hill, and now we have the Master Builder, where it really credits deck building. And I like that they're doing this, because the discussion has always been the current format doesn't give credit to deck builders. It's just whoever brings the best counter decks, and you go through that. And of course, you can build your own deck. I mean, for instance, Darkwonyx is a good representation of that, and Neirea too. But it still doesn't feel as, I guess, rewarding. But here we go, where it's really more so about deck building. And I mean, we can talk about this tournament itself, but I also just want to discuss kind of what other things do you think we're missing out on with the given standard King of the Hill and or Conquest mode now out from Blizzard for the World Championship? What are we missing out on, the parts of Hearthstone that we're not rewarding well in tournament play?
I guess we're not awarding Swiss as much anymore, because Swiss has always been like one of the top formats in almost every single card game and every single game in general. Like, I'm a chess player too. Swiss was the most commonly formats, especially if you have a lot of people. Let's say you have like 1,000 people. I would say Swiss is actually better. It takes a long time, sure, but I think it's better in the long run.
Can you explain Swiss to like viewers, because not everybody is familiar with the term?
Oh yeah, with the term, yeah.
Swiss is basically, it's a round-based system where you will play the amount of rounds that are set in the tournament. Let's say you have 7 rounds and you 1,000 people. If you win, you're gonna face another winner, most likely, and you will face someone that has the same amount of points as you do, but you will not be eliminated if you lose. You can still go like 5 wins and 2 losses, and you will be placed pretty highly. So it's not like in open brackets nowadays, if you lose, you're out. And that's not always the most fun, like if you play a tournament, because you want to play a lot of games. You want to have fun, like playing a tournament. And you don't want to go out or go home instantly when you lose. So I think Swiss is actually more fun for most people, because they can do what they were signed up to do. And if you lose one game, you're still in the run, because you can still go 6-1 and still be pretty highly placed. So I think Swiss is a much better format.
It's a very
Swiss is pretty good for first stage, for qualifying into the 4-man bracket or something like this of 8-man bracket, but not like the as whole tournament. Also, like one format that like I feel like a lot of players really appreciate to see. It's a weird game House Cup format with 9 classes, a lot of bans, a lot of picks. It's very exciting to like prepare for this format.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
so
like you have to
more options.
Prepare like all the classes. Like Swiss is really weird because like not Swiss as a format, but Swiss and Hearthstone. Like in the beginning, we had a lot of single elimination, double elimination tournaments, and everybody was like, yeah, we want Swiss because we are used from Magic and other games, and then chess. Like we just want to go, when we sign up for the tournament, we want to play 7 rounds at least, and people were pushing for that. But the problem is like for the offline tournaments, you do need a lot of computers. Like you make a tournament, let's say 200 people sign up. You do want to have 200 PCs to be able to serve those people. And there was a tournament like that. There was Gamers Origin 1 and 2, where we had like 400 people, but this was an IT school, and they did have 400 PCs to like get those people in and play. But other than that, it's pretty tough. But even online, I think like organizers are actually stopping to organize Swiss because there's not enough demand from the players. Like players got used to this single elimination format because like you sign up for the tournament, you come and you play it as long as you're winning. If you lose, you're like, oh right, oh well, okay. I just didn't want even to play like 6 rounds. I just signed up to like play a couple. If I do well, I'm fine with winning. But if I like lose, I'm like, okay, I just played 2 games of Hearthstone and I'm good. So I don't think community is really like the general community, not the pros community. The community is not like invested enough to fight for the Swiss. Like even we had those mana grind Swiss tournaments. I feel at some point they died out overall. Like people were not like still people played it and enjoyed it. Like the group of people, but not like the general majority of players.
I think I like BlizzCon qualifiers for Swiss format. It was kind of cool. Like if you lose 3, you're out. It's not like 2. 3 is pretty good amount for to lose. And like if you win 6, I guess, right? Or 7. I mean plus 5. So you're up. It's pretty cool. Like and you are not boring of playing because like even if you're like 0-2, you have still a hope that you'll qualify for the next stage or something like this.
Yeah, I think listening to what you guys are saying, I think Gnimsh kind of I want to add on to what you said is that the fact that for one we have so many online tournaments now is that players, well, obviously the top of the crop, you guys will have to take everything seriously, but more players can basically take tournaments lightly because it's like, oh, I lost this one. Well, I can try for the next qualifier. Like it's tomorrow or it's in 12 hours. I can sign up for 3 in one weekend, right? Like you just have so many options to try to get your name out there. And so you basically throw yourself at everything. In which case I do feel that eventually that makes each tournament less rewarding, even if you get through the qualifiers, because anyone can just throw their luck at the board and see if they can make it through. So I hope, I agree. I hope to see at least bigger tournaments, maybe get through that. And in terms of offline tournaments, now with tablets, I wonder if it's so impossible to now try to get tablet companies as sponsors and just get more tablets down there, because those would be at least easier to transport and set up than PCs. And then see. I wonder if that's feasible.
That's a very valid point because Hearthstone just got released on Android, and before it was on the iOS. And I think like Android devices are more easily accessible, so you can possibly just get more of them and provide to the tournament. You also have more producers, like because for iOS, like Apple.
So, like Apple, so you can just get different sponsors.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a very valid point, and I would love to see like. Because at Via Game House Cup that Neirea mentioned, we did play on a Windows Surface, and it was amazing. Like just sitting in the chair and like looking at your opponent, totally relaxed, just okay, I'm doing this, being Forsen, showing signs to RDU. That was exciting. I loved it.
Yeah, I actually think that's something to really look into for tournament organizers is. Also, because for instance, at a lot of offline events, right, you have showcases for your sponsors, and so sometimes we'll see, those PC, building companies custom PC companies that will come in with their showcases, but then now with tablet companies, you can even showcase multiple models and have those for players, right? Different screen sizes and whatnot, and so people can choose their preference. So, maybe this will help kind of evolve the scene in general for offline tournaments and the sponsor choices. But I'm glad you guys brought that up. That's not something that was on my own radar, but I'm happy to hear about it again. Next up on the list, I just want to touch upon spectator mode. This is just something I came across when I was talking to Jason Chase and Hamilton Chu when they visited Korea, and we got to talk to them during an interview here at OGN. And I got to ask them about spectator mode, kind of what's your plans for it. Obviously, it definitely could use more work for esports, and their answer was pretty in line with what Hearthstone has been from the beginning. It's like, well, spectator mode was originally created for the social purpose, to basically make Hearthstone more enjoyable between your friends, and we definitely are listening to feedback. But obviously, they have kind of bigger matters on hand, such as the smartphone releases that they're working towards before kind of working out the kinks here for esports. And what do you guys think about that as players? It's fine. People figure out a way to work around it, and we'll make it happen. Because we did it without spectator mode, right? For a full year, like we did it with multiple streams.
For me, like when I play with some friends or whatever, one problem went from our play. It's Skype screen share. It's like sometimes it's bugging, or you can't share, or if it's not showing, it's not loading.
Yeah.
Or something like this. It was very annoying. And also, like for tournaments, right? For tournament organizers, it's much easier to see the games and actually work on production more. Other production.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically, like it has a lot of benefits, but it's like it's kind of small thing, but it just like small benefit.
Yeah, I mean, Gnimsh and I have definitely run into that same thing, right, with the Skype screen share. Sometimes, I mean, basically, if at that point, aside from the game, like you add another factor, a third program, that if that bugs up, the observing and then the casting and the viewing all gets affected. So it would be appreciated, at least from a caster standpoint. But I agree with Neirea that it's small things. It's basically quality of life changes, right? That will come down the pipe, I'm sure.
I see a big plus from the player's perspective, and I noticed in a couple of like past tournaments after Observer mode was released. Basically, if organizers wanted to feature your match, so if you get streamed, let's say, you have to set up a stream, and you do have to stream your game and camera and stuff. And right now it's like super easy. Just if they want your camera, you can stream camera or like use a software to like show your camera somewhere else. Or maybe just use Skype to just so that they can capture camera. But in game, you just don't have to do anything. You just you add a person, and then you allow the person to spectate. But you don't have to stream the game. You don't have to lag your stuff, like your PC. And it was really much easier for me as a player because I didn't have to think about all the stuff happening around it. I just I just play my game and focus on the game, don't focus on technical things. So apart from the spontaneous bugs that happen with observer mode, I think like it's going in a good direction, and Blizzard is surely going to fix that. But for now, I'm happy that we got this, because before just even syncing the streams, like I'm not sure how difficult was it from production side, but I'm sure they are a bit more.
Yeah, it was really hard because even in an offline setting for the OGN like Korea China tournaments, so for the early rounds we had the Chinese players playing from China, so then we had to get their screen share streamed over to us on a separate channel and then do that, but then we had to account for the lag there, and so it would always be like 2 to 3 seconds off. So every game they'd be fixing it a little bit more and more to make it match up so that the viewers don't get anything spoiled for them. It was definitely tough. It's a lot easier now for sure, and I'm sure we'll see improvements and patches down the road for the quality of the spectator mode.
I really love when you can actually see your opponent at the same time while playing, because I remember when I was playing DSL, we had the Skype up on the same time, so we could see like our facial expressions.
Oh, right.
And I just love like when that happens, because if you pay enough attention to watching your opponent as much as you watch the game, you can actually see like so many details happening inside the game. And I just love that, like from playing old chess or playing like LAN events before, when you always have to face your opponent, because there's so much poker face involved in Hearthstone that most people won't like even notice. There's a lot of new players that comes into Hearthstone and they like start playing and they top deck something they don't want and they go like, oh fuck, like, what do I do? Like they'll be like completely nervous, or you play a card and they don't have a response. They like, you see a little bit of sweat like dripping down from the forehead or something. So it's so funny just being able to see your opponent and keeping that poker face. It really is. It makes it more fun for the viewers too, I guess, when they know that you can actually see each other.
Yeah, not just the viewers seeing the cameras, but the players being able to see each other. Yeah, you're right, because as you guys were mentioning, I mean, Gnimsh mentioned it a little bit in a different light earlier. If you can see your opponent, it's more fun in a number of ways, and Poker Face is definitely heavily involved in any card game, including Hearthstone. Maybe we'll get to see more of that. That it's definitely fun, because for now, the viewers simply getting to see player cams alone is already entertaining, right? Because you can see the players react, and then if you can see players react to each other, that'd be pretty exciting.
Yeah, sometimes you see people dressing as someone else, like Applejack did versus Trump. Dying with their hand.
Right on.
Stuff like that.
And so yeah, for instance, on Duck Wars, we do have the players allowed to see each other, at least on camera. And so for our viewers, you can keep that in mind if you continue watching. But yeah, I mean that's about it for esports too. It's actually been relatively quiet just because now we just have the regular weekly stuff going on every week. Nothing too big ramping up just yet. I'm sure things will start to change as we head into late February, March. Kind of the quarterly tournaments coming through and offline events, and I look forward to that and many more as we go through the year. Talking about esports, I think we can just quickly touch upon the just most recent kind of rankings that were put out, the GOSU rankings from GOSU Gamers. And Gnimsh and I were talking about this before the broadcast today. Just kind of interesting. I mean, aside from the player rankings that they've consistently had, for which right now Strife Crow ranked #1 yet again, they also have the team rankings going on now. And I mean, they admit obviously it's a little bit hard to figure out team rankings in Hearthstone. But some interesting things here are that we do see relatively newer teams being ranked fairly high by GOSU rankings, including Team Nihilium and Complexity being up here. And then we see some Chinese teams here too, Newbie and Vici Gaming being in the top 10 organizations. Cloud9 reigning supreme, though. There you go, Gnimsh, at rank #1.
Well, I'm pretty happy about that. The team is doing great, and I think we had the first spot before as well. It's just
yeah. I mean, what do you think about it? I guess especially for you, your team being ranked highly consistently, about being able to do team rankings for Hearthstone. Kind of what's the logic behind that?
Well, I think like the logic is because people just like rankings, and the teams, they do compete against each other all the time, and people want to see, like sponsors want to see that. Like you go to the sponsor and say, hey, we are like the top team in this game, so you are sponsoring the correct people. And people do like to compete, teams do like to compete, but I'm not like convinced about the ranking system, because it's like favoring smaller teams that have results. Like it's hard to get someone,
right,
and then like you drop in ranking. Like, so you get this potential player who might be great, but he needs some work, and then you get the guy to the team, and your team drops from like top 3 to top 6 because that guy is actually pulling you down, even though like he is bringing a lot to the team. And also like the qualities of the players, because like some players are just like they have skills as a deck builders, as deck builders, so
right,
they're like great as deck builders, but they don't have the results in games, or like they are not invited enough, so they don't have the scores, but they are like the key player for a team, and they bring a lot to the team as a team composition goes. So I think it's really hard to like judge a team like overall on points. But well, it's like if you have some data and data is here, you can like judge it, but then you have to add like, hey, this is only based on the points. And I think also Gamer is actually doing a good job. Like they did, they do have those rankings, and we talked about those rankings before like many times. But then again, those are the only rankings we have. Like Blizzard is not giving us any official rankings, so we just use what we can, and we're happy with that, I guess, or unhappy. But
yeah, I mean, you know, looking at Neirea, but you know, looking at it, you know, Darkwonyx, you should just say that you're in your own team, Team Darkwonyx, and see how high you can climb the team rankings there just on your own, and your own results will just skyrocket you on the Ghostly rankings.
The only problem is that this point system is kind of based on the more people you have in the team, the more points you can get.
Right.
Because there's no downside here, right? You can't get minus points by like some members doing like worse in tournaments. So if you just get a team with 40 players, you could easily top that one.
Don't they weight it like the number of players? Like some summary points.
I don't think they do yet. I think they want to, but I don't think they do yet. Because I mean, I can't blame them, because for now, pretty much what Darkwonyx says is accurate, is because it's so hard to tell kind of what the average trend is going to be in team sizes, right? Because teams are still signing new players, new teams are being formed by old players. So I think they're also just kind of waiting to see what algorithm would be best. And they admit it right on from the beginning. They're like, well, we're partly just doing it for fun. We're working on an algorithm to kind of brush it out and make it a little bit more meaningful. But it's just a quick glance at kind of who's doing well. And really, it's just a culmination of the individual rankings, as they point out themselves. So yeah, I just wanted to touch upon that. It was just fun to read, as they mentioned themselves. But you know, aside from things like rankings, a couple other things that have happened in general in the scene. Recent reported Hearthstone over 25 million players. I think that's pretty awesome. So a pretty big jump up from the 20 million in September. So, I mean, Hearthstone's clearly growing. And then the smartphone ports are in the works by Blizzard, which you know, when I talked to Jason, they said pretty much that's like the only thing they're super focusing on right now is making sure that smartphone versions can come out ASAP and smoothly. And I can only assume that that's going to bump up the 25 million by quite a bit.
Yeah, I do agree. I definitely do agree. So, like a lot of people, I think we can relate to poker a bit. Like a lot of people, they do like playing poker on their phones, because you just connect, and even though like the phones are getting bigger and bigger, like sometimes the phone is a bit small, but you can see everything, and also people right now are getting bigger phones as well. So the reach of the mobile phone is much bigger than the tablet. Because
absolutely
everybody owns a phone or two, and not everybody owns a tablet. So if they really get like a good version on the phones, which is probably a huge task because you do have a lot of systems and resolutions, is just crazy how many like different devices there are. But if they succeed, we may even double the number. Like
I really think so. Just the ease of accessibility.
I think the hardest in this it's like to put everything on this whole screen.
Yeah,
like it's so hard.
Is it gonna be touch as well?
Yeah. So
yeah, it's so hard to to make people to not misclick or something. It's like ridiculous.
I already have hard time using my tablet sometimes because like big fingers. So if it's gonna be on a phone, I have to buy a pen or something to play with. It's gonna be impossible to play that rag otherwise.
Yeah. It'll probably have to be like phones with styluses. But funny that you mentioned, Gnimsh, that like people are starting to get bigger and bigger phones again, because you know, for a while everyone was like about getting smaller and smaller phones, but now with more and more apps and mobile games coming out, people are going back to slightly bigger screens, and Hearthstone hitting it at the right time, at least if they're going into the phone market for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But aside from that, in terms of new content, so speaking with them here, you know, they were like, well, yeah, we definitely have new content in the works, and the next one they want to work on is yet another adventure, kind of like Next Ramus, you know, kind of like a adventure part 2. What did you guys, and I know it's been a while, but now that we're looking forward to the next update, the big update coming up. What do you think of Nax, both content wise and also how it was released? I mean, was it pretty satisfactory, or did it leave some lingering thoughts on your minds when we first approached it?
I kind of wanted to see from Naxxramas some storyline or something like this, like from Warcraft history, but I saw only like bosses and that's it. So I was kind of disappointed from this side. So I kind of expect from next expansion. So they will add some storyline and story-based adventure.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That's actually a sick idea. I just imagined like you see the trailer, which was great, and then you enter Naxxramas and you have Naxxramas story play out in the form of cutscenes, like animated, fun Naxxramas cutscenes based on what you do. So you like enter the like say Arachnid Quarter, and you have those cutscenes like going you through the bosses and what's happening, and maybe even like introduce some Hearthstone characters, like specific characters for Hearthstone, not like Jaina, because Jaina is from World of Warcraft, but like a player character that will be specific for Hearthstone and will take you through the story of Naxxramas as you like accompany this character. Well, that would be like a lot of fun there, and because like not everyone knows the story of Naxxramas. It's like people who play World of Warcraft, they do know it, but people who didn't, they are like, yeah, I just kill those bosses, and I'm like, whatever. I know Kel'Thuzad maybe, but like, who is Patchwork? Like, why should I be excited about it?
Yeah, it holds no special meaning. It's just another boss. I kind of actually felt similarly with the original tutorial when you first start the game, because it looked like it was going to be partially a storyline, but then it wasn't. It was just boss after boss being thrown at you, so you can learn the mechanics of the game. So maybe they'll put some more narrative into that. Obviously, they wouldn't have to like write new narrative. They would just have to figure out a way to present it differently than they did with the original lore. That would be interesting. What about the way it was released, right? So we had wings, and you have to buy each wing. And generally for free-to-play users, the gold costs seem to be a little bit jarring for them to approach, especially if they started the game late. But what do you guys think about that? Obviously, for most pros and casters or anyone involved in the esports scene, you're not going to hesitate to either dish out, or you're going to have gold lying around because you've been playing for so long, to just get that content right away. But for most users, what do you think about Naxxramas? That it's fine, you'll catch up, or maybe it was a little bit too much?
It wasn't like a big amount of gold anyway. I got like in 1 week on NA, I bought 3/4 out of 4, right?
There were 4, yeah.
And 1 free. So I bought 3 except of the last one in 1 week, playing just arena. So it's not like if you want to buy it, you will buy it. It's not a very hard task.
Right on. Like if you want it, you'll commit to it.
Basically. After GVG came out, like only way to get packs, it's like gold or playing a lot of arena. A lot of arena. It's not like you needed like more than 100 packs for sure to get at least 80% of the cards. And yeah, so I personally I was forced to buy packs.
I think the gold cost should be maybe a little bit lowered, because I have some friends that started playing Hearthstone pretty late, and they're not like the greatest in arena. They don't always get above 7 wins.
Yeah.
And if they don't always do that, they will never get the gold enough to buy Nax unless they play dailies for 2 weeks in a row. So like for new players, it's kind of impossible to get ahead of get a hold of Nax without buying it, because they won't get the gold that quickly unless they like get the starting goal, like a 300 goal of the 100 wins or something like that. That can boost you up, but it's still only enough for like a half a wing usually. There needs to be some way for new players to get a hold of Nax, like old players that usually get like a lot of wins in arena and can actually get gold that way. It's easy, but yeah.
I think that also coming back to your original question, how did we enjoy Naxxramas? I did enjoy the process, how they spoil it first. So like they gave us cards by quarters, so we were excited about it. We could review everything. I liked it. I hope that well, this is a standard strategy when you spoil the set when you introduce it. And then I liked how they implemented it so that every week metagame was changing and we could have fun with like new cards, new ideas. Even if some cards are less playable, for that 1 week maybe they are playable. So you want to try them out, you want to have fun. So that was very intense, like metagame based was a very intense period. But what the guys are saying about the gold, I think like when Blizzard has to start thinking about new players, and when they release the new adventure mode, maybe they should discount Nextramas, or maybe even give it free. Like a
That's
business
something that
decision.
people have talked about.
Yeah, to just get people like, hey, I started playing Hearthstone, and there's this adventure mode. I can have fun. I get free cards, and then I have to invest in the new adventure mode and possibly like GVG. But then the pool of cards is accessible.
Yeah, maybe even something like during the week before the second adventure comes out, right? It can be on a discount, or like the first 2 wings can be free now, so that people can try to catch up or see what they're getting into and see if they want to invest more. And I'm sure these are all things Blizzard is contemplating, but I want to see what you guys thought. But something that you mentioned, Gnimsh, I didn't have this in my notes, but I want to touch upon because this bugged me personally. So when GVG came out, next I was fine with all the cards being spoiled because it was week by week. And basically the meta changed every week and it was fun. But with GVG, a part of me was hoping that not every card would be spoiled, because that can kind of always bring you back to when you first started the game. Because when the game first came out, we didn't know every single card, right? So every time you open a pack where you go into the collection, you had the fun of actually reading up on the card then and forcing yourself to try it to see if it works. But with GVG, people were so quick to kind of make judgments. And for me, opening packs wasn't as celebratory anymore because I was like, well, I know what cards I want already. So I'm just going to open all these packs and then I'm just going to go on with my life. What do you guys think about that, especially as players? I'm wondering if you guys still would prefer that it's spoiled beforehand so that you can have some idea before you jump into it.
I like having them before.
I like having it after like 2 days or 3 days. It would be more exciting to see like what you'll be sharing with your friends what the cards you will open.
Exactly.
If they don't, but not like a spoil. I mean, not like release day after 1 week, because it would be too late.
Yeah. I mean, because when it comes out, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could technically just go into the crafting mode and go through your collection and look at.
I would say the optimal is like to say how much exactly cards will be released, so player will be not like buy packs after packs to see.
Okay, yeah.
So they will kind of know. Yeah,
I think like you actually, it's so easy to get a spoiler that basically I think there is no need to like stop yourself from spoiling the full spoiler. It's like in every card game, before the release, there is always a full spoiler because people some of the cards get spoiled and then somebody just gets the product and he instantly the same day he just releases what's inside. So if Blizzard would not release the full list of cards, then the first thing I would do, I would just Google full spoiler of GVG, and it will be somewhere. Somebody like Hearthphone or like iHeartView, somebody will list it and have all the cards, and it will get like loads of traffic. Everybody would like to see like all the cards and then discuss it. Like, I appreciate like how people enjoy and how you enjoy like opening packs and having fun, but you can still have it. Like, you just don't follow the news. Just don't get just wait.
Just delete your Facebook.
But still, some excitement first hours will be presented, right?
Yeah, I mean, so for GVG, after the daily reveals they did, right? They revealed the rest on Facebook, like all in one album. So I was like, all right, I'll just look at the dailies, and then I knew the album was coming. And then as soon as it came, my Twitter feed, all it talked about was everyone was like, "Have you guys seen the rest of the GVG cards?" And I was like, well, now I kind of want to look at it. So I ended up looking at it a couple of days before. I was like, I don't know why I did that. But I mean, you have to have a lot of restraint if you want to avoid that. But I guess it makes sense, Gnimsh, what you said. If it's going to get revealed anyway, why not Blizzard do it themselves? Makes a lot of sense. And then it helps pros and deck builders and whatnot, theory crafters, if they want to start to tinker with ideas beforehand. it can start to shape the meta already.
It also helps community because like if Blizzard releases cards, you know this is the official Hearthstone fan page for like on Facebook, and you know that the cards are legit. And if somebody else does it, then not only they get a lot of traffic, they can create like weird PR for Blizzard, because if they like make mistakes, let's say they list a card which is normally a free as a 2/2, then people will be like, "Hey Blizzard, what's up with that? Like we got this information, it's not correct." And you know, it's like, or there's like there was a card and it's not there like in the game, like what happened? So you know, it's like it's better to control everything and got all the information through like official sources.
Yeah, that's true. I guess so. Makes a lot of sense. Well, that's about it. I mean, there's been some fun stuff going on just recently. Of course, a new video series came up with Mythbusters of Hearthstone. Some neat things there, including you can have more than 7 minions on one side, and you can have more than 5 secrets on one side, as long as you steal them. And so the 7 minions one threw me off guard. The secrets I had actually known about, but the 7 minions threw me off guard, that you can, if you Shadow Madness and it goes back, it just overfloods their board. And you have like 6 minions sticking off of the board, just floating in midair.
Whoa.
And they can attack with it. The chances of that ever happening in a regular game is less than 1%, I think. But definitely interesting mechanic that they left it in there. But so for our viewers, if you want to check that out, it's just fun. You know, fun videos are always nice to catch up on and just kind of remind you why you enjoy the game. But that's it. That's it for kind of all the hot topics that have been going on this week. It's been a much quieter week after last week. It was a little bit of an explosive issue last week, but this week's a lot more standard. We got to talk about the meta a little bit, talk about the state of Warlock with Darkwonyx. We got to talk earlier with Neirea about just the meta on the tabletop, and after his win on Deck Wars today, 4-1 against Max. So congratulations once again. And before we sign off, why don't we just do some quick shout outs, first with our guests. Neirea, if you want to go first, and then Darkwonyx.
I haven't prepared for that, but that's okay. So shout out to Team Liquid, to Savish, Monk, and shout out to our sponsors, Razer, HyperX, and recently new sponsors, HTC and Namecheap. So yeah, and others for sure. I just didn't remember them all.
That's fine. That's fine. And then Darkwonyx, what about you? Any shout outs you want to make?
That is the best part about being teamless. Shout out to all my fans and all who follows me on Twitch and Twitter, and keep boosting me up in the upcoming tournaments. That would make me play better.
There
no
you
sponsor,
go.
hashtag.
And Gnimsh, what about you?
Well, from my side, shout out to Cloud9, our team, and to all our sponsors, obviously. If you guys have any comments, you can follow me on Twitter and just give me a shout. Like I like responding to feedback, and I'm also streaming out on Twitch, TV/Gnimsh every day, almost, when I'm there.
Yep, and same for me. Thanks for all our viewers who basically, first of all, watch the show. Thanks for tuning in all the time and follow us on social media. And all of us stream, as you can see, on Twitch. So you can see our IDs here. Mine's Chobra, Gnimsh, and then Neirea's Neirea, Darkwonyx, just straight up Darkwonyx. We all have really nice IDs for our viewers. They just have to type in our names and they'll find it. That's really convenient. But so you guys will find us, all 4 of us combined. You'll probably see one of us on at one point almost every day. So that's it for today's Turn 2. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thank you so much, Neirea and Darkwonyx, for joining us. And thank you, as always, Gnimsh, for being an awesome co-host. We'll be back next week with more Hearthstone, maybe some more juicy things to talk about, depending on what happens during the upcoming days. And we'll see you guys next week.